we need all the publicity we can get. You know, there's a certain amount of loss you get through text. You know, to read a paragraph or a comment on social media, you don't know how I'm talking.
Sure.
You know, so to be able to speak in a way where you can hear me, I think makes a huge difference.
Sure.
You know, I'm doing what I think is best for my sport. I love muzzleloading. I love Pennsylvania. I love being in the woods in Pennsylvania. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to do, man. That's it. I think if people can see me and see the passion that we have for it, I think they'll be a little less afraid of what we're trying to do.
In this video, I traveled to Altoona to shoot at Tuckahoe Valley Militia Club for the Pennsylvania Federation of Black Powder Shooters Spring Banquet Shoot. I sit down and have an impromptu conversation with the Federation's president, Jeff Warner. We talk about his start in muzzleloading and the new push for implementing a fall flintlock-only season here in Pennsylvania. With no real guideline to our sit-down, some of the clips are mixed up for better understanding. Thanks for watching and listening. I don't know if it's gonna chop it up or not, and then we can knock this. We can end it. Jeff Warner here. We're up here at
Blair County Game Fish and Forestry Association.
Right.
The charter club though is called the Tuckahoe Valley Militia.
So, what the older fellow there was telling me that you're his godson.
Godson, yeah.
So yeah, maybe fill us in on that and how, because I know he's pretty well known in muzzleloading.
Oh my, yeah.
And but yeah, if you want to go ahead and tell us about how you got started.
Well, my dad was really into muzzleloading in the late '80s. Unfortunately, he passed away just before I was born. So some time went down the line here where I kind of wasn't really involved. I had inherited all of his muzzleloading stuff. His best friend, Don Blazer, is my godfather, and just about everyone knows him in the muzzleloading community. He's been shooting in Pennsylvania here since the 60s. He's a national champion. He's a state champion. He's been on the state flintlock team for probably 30 years now. So he kind of taught me everything I know about muzzleloading. I shot a little bit here whenever I was a young kid. You know, I come out to a couple shoots, and then it went for a good while where I just didn't really touch the muzzleloader again. And then right around the time I was 22, I decided to go to a shoot. You know, I saw Don at the sports show at the Jaffa Mosque in Altoona, and he said, "Hey, there's a shoot this weekend. Why don't you come out?" So I was like, "Yeah, you know, we'll do that. We'll go out to a shoot." And I think that was 2013, and then ever since then, I've just been at it. Consistently, real consistent the past 10 years. I've been shooting pretty regular, going to the state shoot, just going to the local shoots. Here at Tuckahoe Valley Militia, I run the muzzleloading shoots we have here. So I've been doing that now for the last couple years. Then I got on the board of the Federation probably 7 years ago. Was on the board for a couple years, and I needed a president, and they asked me to do it, and I said yes. So I do that. That takes up a fair amount of my muzzleloading time. I shoot and try to qualify for the state flintlock team every year. The past 3 years, I've been right out of the 10-man team. I've been between number 7 and number 5 on the 10-man team. We go down to Kentucky and shoot every fall. So kind of what we do. We're muzzleloaders, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I got into the position I'm in.
Okay.
So I love it. You know, I have other interests too. You know, I just kind of love history. I collect other firearms. You know, I collect World War II guns, but muzzleloading just I can't get away from it. You know, I love doing it. I make horns poorly. I work on guns. There's something about being able to hold the history in your hands. Everything we do is handmade, from, you know, possibles bags to horns to guns to knives. I love having something that, hey, you know, my buddy makes these, you know.
Yeah.
Even the lock on my gun, one of my buddies shooting over there, he hot rodded it, did some hot rod work on it for me, you know. So I love competing. I love competitive shooting. When it comes to competitive shooting, muzzleloader, at least Flintlock specifically, is one of the harder competitive shooting sports you can be into, because it requires a lot of practice, and more practice than I do sometimes.
Yeah.
I admittedly need to get on the range a little bit more than I have been.
Why don't you tell us, I mean, people already know, it's floating around on the internet. How did it all come about, the whole buck and doe season?
Well, as a lot of people know, we are seeing some changes to the late Flintlock season. We're into 6 WMUs now where they allow centerfire rifles across the state. The Game Commission, whether you agree or disagree with why they're doing it, their excuse is because those WMUs didn't meet the doe harvest quotas for that time period. And when it come down to looking at why that's happening, it's been a fairly steady decline in the number of hunters in Pennsylvania probably the last decade. So that in turn means that there's less doe being harvested. And in order to, at least if you believe what they say, in order to fight the chronic wasting disease, they're really trying to crack doe on the doe population. So less hunters means less doe harvested, which means they need to fill more tags, which means they're going to have to issue more tags. And when there's not people buying the tags, they're going to have to open up some other seasons to get that to happen. I'm not saying we necessarily agree with why they're doing what they're doing. I'm not a biologist, so I can't say one way or the other. So we got a lot of apprehensive comments about what's happening in the late season. We felt that as though that our efforts are better placed in asking for more rather than asking the Game Commission to do less. Because at this point, if I tried to get them to remove the centerfire rifles from those WMUs, that's going to be like asking them to want us to harvest less deer. And I just don't think that that's something that is feasible with their current harvest goals. So that's kind of where we're at with it. We're not trying to lose the late season at all. That's not our goal. But the reality of the situation, and it's not a pleasant reality, is they're coming for the late season. Just in the last 6 or 7 years, they have tried multiple times to allow inlines in the late season.
See, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
I know people have talked of it.
They've been talking about it. Usually, it gets shot down pretty quickly in the Game Commission. There's a couple of commissioners and a couple of directors that are really hard up, thankfully, on keeping it traditional. But I think the doe harvest numbers are kind of keeping that at bay a little bit. There's a certain number they look at, and at some point the traditional side kind of goes off to the wayside. Just this fall, we just had a vote in the Game Commission to allow inlines in DMAP zones and personal property, private property, and that only got shot down by one vote.
Oh wow!
Some of the biggest pushback of what we're trying to do, because coming from the muzzleloading side of it, is that it's going to screw up the late season. And like I said, it's unfortunate where we're at with it, but I personally, in our organization, think that we're kind of a day late and a dollar short there. In order to completely save the late season where it was without the modern rifles in there, we would have had to been doing this 3 or 4 years ago. And that's just not where we're at with it.
Yeah. The ship sailed.
It kind of, unfortunately, and I hate it. I hate that that's where it's come to. But we're not in a position to haggle with the Game Commission over late season. If we take our petition to the Game Commission and they want to trade the late season for this early season, I'm just going to tell them no, because I'm not interested in losing anymore. I just feel as though it's a fruitless effort to just throw all of our chips into just trying to save the late season, because I just don't think that they're going to budge on it. Mm-hmm. Historically, once you lose a certain amount, it's almost impossible to get it back. And the Game Commission is not necessarily in the business to want us to harvest less deer. Because the fact of the matter is, the harvest report is going to come out in April. The fact of the matter is, I'm assuming, you shouldn't assume, but that more doe were probably harvested in that extended rifle season into the late season there. So we'll know a little more when that comes out. But I know it sounds awful pessimistic of us, but we don't see them easing up on wanting to come into the late season.
When did this come about? Just within the... I mean, I first heard about it a couple days before the Carlisle show.
Right.
And I joined the Pennsylvania Federation of Black Powder Shooters at that show and talked to Jeff then about it, signed the petition. I've obviously noticed some division amongst us black powder shooters over this situation, and it's causing a little division, but at the same time, you got to look at it from the perspective that Jeff and others and myself, we're not trying to screw anything up. We're just trying to keep it alive.
Right.
I mean, one of the things I want to mention here it is March. We're out here shooting. We're having a good time. It's what we do. We shoot muzzleloaders. We don't just pick them up and go every now and again. I mean, we love the history of it. Our families have been using these firearms for years and years, and it's a core value of who we are as Pennsylvanians to keep shooting these guns and having these seasons. So to see it wither away with whatever's put in place, we're wanting to see opportunity.
Absolutely.
More opportunity. And I know the argument too people will say is, well, take it in the rifle season. And I do hunt in the rifle season with it, and I do hunt in the early season with it, and I hunt as much as I can with my flintlock. But we do get the short end of the stick when it comes to the late season. The herd we were talking about earlier, the herds, I mean, they've been pushed for a while. It's hard to find them. If you're only able to hunt public, it's difficult.
I honestly think that's going to get more people hunting with a flintlock. Just the couple of people just from I've talked to in person or on Instagram and Facebook, there's guys that don't buy a muzzleloader stamp at all that have said that, hey man, if I could go out in the fall and hunt for a buck, I would be in with buying a muzzleloader stamp. I've talked to a lot of guys that hunt that early season with their flintlock just after a doe, and there they see a real nice buck with their flintlock, and they obviously can't take that deer. And then that's the last nice buck they see for the rest of the whole year.
Right.
So I think it would be a great opportunity to get more people out. Inevitably, there's going to be guys that are out after a buck with their flintlock that's going to kill more doe. So I think that's a side of it that the Game Commission will be pleased with. And one of the biggest things is, like you'd already touched upon, this is an important part of our history as Pennsylvanians. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the United States becoming a country. A lot of people would consider Pennsylvania to be home of the long rifle. So not only is that time period historically relevant to Pennsylvania, but those rifles were used to win the Revolution. So that's something that is also historically relevant to our country. So I think that's an important history to preserve, especially now, times being the way they are. So that's one of the big reasons why we're doing what we're doing. It's not just about harvesting more deer. That argument will just take your flintlock out in the regular rifle season is great, if that's all I was trying to do is kill more deer. But our goal here ultimately is to get more people in the woods with the historic firearm.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on the 250th anniversary. That's something that I've been thinking about. I don't know if you're aware of the Civil War Ken Burns documentary.
Yeah, I saw that was coming out.
He's coming out with the Revolution. I think that's going to be awesome. I think he's pretty liberal. We'll see how it turns out. But
sometimes that happens with academia, but
I am curious to see how that goes, and I guess there's no real way of knowing until it happens, but I am curious to see what kind of resurgence there'll be in Flintlock.
We're hoping that, something like that or a movie coming out would make a big difference. In the height of muzzleloading, in the 70s and 80s, you had movies like Jeremiah Johnson came out, and that made a big deal. The bicentennial, 1976, that's kind of when muzzleloading really took off. So I'm pretty hopeful that there will be at least a little bit of a resurgence in the historic community. I've seen there's a couple different people that are hinting around it, bringing out, a Revolutionary War-based movie, kind of like The Patriot. So I think next year will be the great time to do it. President Trump's planning this big, long shindig, basically, for the whole entire year next year. and we're kind of going to be playing off of that a little bit. The state shoot, we're going to have a pretty big party ourselves at the end of August. Yeah, we're already this year seeing a bigger turnout as far as memberships in the federation. This year's the most amount of charter clubs we've ever had in the federation. When I took over, I think we were down around 20 or 18 or 19. We're up to 34 now. I've been the president now about 5 or 6 years.
So you know what's going on there. You say how many people?
We have 34 charter clubs this year. I'm not sure how many members we have currently. Okay. Fortunately, like it shows at like Carlisle, at the Artisan Show, I think we sold something like 40 memberships, maybe just under 40, and a lot of those were new members. They weren't just renewals, and that really makes me hopeful for the future of muzzleloading, to see that there's interest kind of gathering here. Yeah. So we're kind of on the brink of the sport dying off. That's another reason why we're pushing for the early season. Any sort of interest we can get in muzzleloading out of that, we need it. I think the average age in muzzleloading, the shooting sport itself, is something like 68 or 70. So we really want to try to get some of these younger guys into it. It's great to see, you're probably around about my age. It's great to see some guys my age and younger. Yep. I'm not necessarily a young man myself, but we need the interest. So.
Yeah. I have heard people said that people tend to get into muzzleloading at an older age.
Right.
When you think about 17, 18, 19-year-olds, when I was that age, I wanted to kill stuff.
Right.
So I was using the best.
Yeah,
I was using a centerfire.
Yeah.
So as you kind of get to that point where you've taken a number of animals, and this is from I'm such a hunter. This is where my mind always goes. Right. Is that I've kind of got to the point where I'm ready to give myself a challenge. So I went to traditional archery, and then I got into flintlocks. And now, really, I try to hunt with my flintlock as much as possible. Right. And I think it's something that you kind of, at some point, want to kind of graduate into. And the opportunity to come to clubs, and we're blessed here in this country to have in a state to have all kinds of places to shoot.
Absolutely.
So that's
and the cool thing about muzzleloading is, no shade to be thrown at other shooting sports, but muzzleloading is probably the most welcoming shooting sport to be involved in. I've been places where I've run out of black powder, my gun broke. There's guys that are just tripping over each other to try to help you. They'll lend you black powder. I've had guys offer me a spare gun. And those are guys that you're competing against, that they just want to help you out. So there's a lot of other shooting sports that just aren't that way. We're very family oriented. Just over here today, there's a whole bunch of kids over there shooting with their parents. My wife shoots with me whenever she feels like it. She's a fair weather shooter. She's not shooting today, but she is out there selling targets. It's a fun sport to be involved in. It's a physical way to touch history.
Yeah.
Whether you're hunting with it or whether you're shooting like we do with them. In Pennsylvania, it is a part of why we are where we're at. The Pennsylvania long rifle, a lot of people don't know that's our state firearm, is the Pennsylvania long rifle. So I think that's important.
Yeah. I was going to say. Why don't you talk a little bit about the Federation of Black Powder Shooters as far as you guys shoot paper only?
No. So the Federation itself, we really only hold one shoot a year technically. Now today's shoot tonight is our annual banquet. So Tuckahoe has their shoot today. They've hosted the shoot, and then tonight we'll have our banquet. Most of what we do on the range during the state shoot, which is our big shoot every year, is mostly paper. Just last year we added a steel match, so there's usually 10 to 15 steel targets to shoot at. But so we're mixing it up a little bit. Most of it's paper, and it's a variety of targets, hard to somewhat easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're more so, if you're familiar with the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association, we're essentially that, but for Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
And our big thing is holding the state championship every year. That sounds kind of intimidating, state championship, but we have targets and aggregates for every skill level. We actually have an aggregate that specifically, once you've won it, you can't shoot in it again.
Okay.
So that helps keep newcomers involved. And that way you're not just competing against someone that is on a national or state champion level.
Yeah, that can be intimidating to new shooters. Right. Let's really dumb it down. You got, like today, we're shooting 3 targets at 25 yards and 3 targets at 50 yards. And each target you're shooting 5 shots at.
Yep. Most targets you shoot at are 5 shots. There's a couple of our charter clubs that do their paper or 3-shot targets, but most commonly in muzzleloading you have a 5-shot target.
And that's all offhand. There's no there are different things that with chunk guns where you're resting and stuff like that, but most of our shooting is all offhand.
Mostly offhand. At the state shoot it's all offhand. Now when you go out to nationals, the NMLRA, there's guys on the heavy bench line, there's chunk gun matches, there's black powder trap. We haven't really gotten into that much of that because that's a lot of stuff to do for a weekend.
Oh yeah.
Pack a lot. We pack a lot into the state shoot. There's a lot of if you were to try to shoot all of it in a weekend, you would be a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
I shoot the main ag, the primitive ag, and maybe 2 other ags. And I mean I'm burning probably almost 2 pounds of powder for the weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So we really put the lead down range.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, that's really the only shoot that the Federation itself holds. But our charter clubs, the 34 charter clubs across the state, if you look at the calendar in our shoot book, you can go to a shoot every single weekend if you felt like traveling.
Yeah.
There's almost not a weekend throughout the year that you won't see some kind of a muzzleloader shoot to go to. And that's everything from punch and paper to woods walks to rendezvous, chunk gun matches, you know.
Yeah.
We represent a fairly wide variety of clubs that have a lot of different shoots throughout the year.
Yeah, and I maybe told you through text message, but like, so I joined this year at Carlisle as one of the new members, and I looked through the book, and here I am looking through this book, and I'm like, holy cow, there's a club I never knew existed. Yep. 2 mile, 3 mile from where I camp in Tioga State Forest, and so I would have never known about it if it wasn't for joining and that being publicized in that book. So,
and as I mentioned earlier, everything's so welcoming to newcomers. Like if you're just wanting to try it out, and you don't have to have a fancy gun or a whole bunch of different equipment. Just take your hunting stuff out, and all these charter clubs absolutely love showing newcomers the ropes.
Yeah.
I've never been to a place where they didn't try to help you however they could to get you started, because that's all we want is more people to come and shoot with us. Our membership, which gets you the shoot book every year, is pretty cheap. It's only $15 for an individual membership. $20 is your whole family. That's you and your wife and any of your kids under 18. And that gets you the shoot book with the dates and locations of 34 of our charter clubs, and then that covers your entry fee to the state shoot if you so want to come to the state shoot. And then you also get a quarterly newsletter with that.
Yeah.
So
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm glad I joined because I didn't even know what it was really about. I've seen you at the Carlisle and the Lewisburg show before, but I didn't really know what it was about. But no, it's good. It's a good opportunity.
We're a fairly small organization. In the 80s, whenever muzzleloading was kind of at its height, we were kind of more prolific, I guess you would say. But we're starting to be on the uptrend here again. So I'm really excited. I'm really hopeful at what we're doing. We're growing. I like to tell people that muzzleloading is a stuff-heavy shooting sport. There's lots of stuff. Shooting boxes and ramrods and bags and horns and measures. But that's not stuff that you have to have immediately.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to have the stuff that I have. You can go to Sportsman's Warehouse or Cabela's or Bass Pro and buy everything you need to go out for a weekend of shooting. You do not have to have a custom muzzleloader or a fancy shooting box or something to get out and get lead down range. That's another good thing about muzzleloading is sure the upfront cost might be up there, but if you're trying to get into a shooting sport, muzzleloading is actually one of the cheapest shooting sports you can be involved in.
And the guys that are buying the stuff are the cheapest ones. Are like myself.
Right,
right,
absolutely. And again, if you really want to do it and you can't afford it, make it.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's why I built my first rifle, was because I was like, I can't pay nobody for
Right.
this thing, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But I
yeah.
wanted a quality rifle, so you buy the parts and you put them
make
together.
it. And you know, and even then, you don't have to have a fancy gun. Justin Burke, he's on the state Flintlock team. He's a state champion. He has a YouTube channel. The gun that he has won a lot of offhand matches on, it is an unstained piece of, I think it's a second. You know, it's not even a top tier piece of wood. There's no finish on it. There's no butt plate on it. The ramrod thimbles have electrical tape holding them on. His trigger guard's a piece of copper pipe he pounded flat and bent around to be a trigger guard. I think it's electrical taped on, but it has a decent lock, a decent set of sights, and a nice trigger. You know, and he wins consistently with that gun.
Yep.
So you don't have to have, you know, you see some of these guys on the line that have a really, really nice custom-made gun, you know, $3,500, $4,000 gun, but you do not need that. There's also guys over there that win consistently with Thompson Center. There's a lot of guys that don't ever bother going this deep with powder horns and fancy bags and stuff. They stick with their commercial-made stuff, you know.
Yeah, I know for myself, it definitely helped when I started shooting custom. It limited, I mean, you can get those production guns to shoot well, but for me, it was crazy how much better they hold, how much quicker the ignition is on a custom rifle.
Once you get a gun that you've kind of tailored to yourself, that definitely takes you up another level.
Yeah.
There is a certain amount of customizing you can do to a factory gun. You know, there's a couple websites that sell upgradable parts for your TCs and your traditions guns, locks and stuff especially. But yeah, having a gun that's built for you definitely makes a good difference. Trigger length of pull, and customize, you know, put some sights that you might like a little better.
Length of pull's huge.
Yeah,
I mean, when it fits you get
length,
some,
length of pull made a big difference for me, because I'd always shot somebody else's gun until I got my own gun. You know, I'm a left-hander. I was shooting a right-handed flintlock for, I don't know, probably 4 years before I got a good left-handed gun. But yeah, you know, like I said, man, after you have your stuff, it's cheaper. Honestly, you know, for one weekend of shooting my muzzleloader, you know, that might be half an hour, 20 minutes with one of my ARs, or especially like my M1 Garand. You know, I'm looking at 75, 85 cents a shot with it, you know, and that's hand-loaded ammunition. You know, for that same price, you know, I could shoot all weekend with my flintlock. You know, am I shooting real fast and making a ton of noise? No, but I'm shooting accurately. You know, and I'm shooting all day.
Yeah. How has shooting muzzleloader made you as far as a shot with a rifle?
Oh my! So that's why I never went back to the percussion, because it took me a long time to get as good as I am with my flintlock. You know, not to say that I'm really that great. You know, like I said, I'm about the middle.
He just put 5 in my fist at 50. So,
man, shooting flint, because it takes that extra follow through, has really improved my shooting with my modern rifles. To the point where, you know, I have fun shooting my modern rifles, and you know, it sounds cocky, but it's just a lot easier. You know, whenever I was sighting in my modern hunt rifle, you know, I sighted it in like three shots, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm just not even.
Yeah.
That's it. It definitely makes a huge difference. Just because we shoot flintlocks offhand has made my confidence level with my modern rifles way higher than it was before I started shooting like we do. I've not really killed many deer in hunting season. I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to getting in the woods. So I want to kill one more nice buck at a decent range with my 308, and then I'll probably put it down and only hunt with my flintlock. And that'll probably be regardless of the if we get our early season or not. I think one, you know, I'm going to hunt anyway. You know, I'll have doe tags, so hopefully if we get the early season, I'll get my buck in the early season, and I'll just be filling the freezer after that.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Another motive I thought of too for myself. This is just me and other young men, family men, but like my children are coming up, and you know, I want to be able to focus them on rifle hunting. But if I'm able to get out in that early season and get a buck, then that's done.
Yeah,
Then I can focus on rifle for the kids.
Yep.
I mean, nothing saying I can't go with my gun, but you know how it is. It's all about the kids.
You're worrying that you want the kids to have the experience at that point.
Right. So, but I may end up putting down the gun for the most part as it is when they come hunting and not even doing much and just focusing on them.
That's important because that's the future of hunting in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, is getting the kids out and getting the kids hunting.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Well, I thank you for your invitation here today.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you come out, man. Yeah, it's good seeing you.
So, yeah. Well, tell people where they can sign it.
Sure. If you check out our Facebook or Instagram, there's multiple links, and I'll keep sharing that every update we get. We're going to keep sharing the link to the online petition. I think we're well over 1,000 now on justtochange.org. We have a physical petition. We'll be at Fort Loudon in June. We will be at the Gunmakers Fair in July down in Kempton. We'll have the physical copy at the State Shoot at the end of August. Okay. And that'll be in St. Thomas, PA. So I think we're going to have it at I'm going to talk to a couple of gun shops, maybe get the petition out there at a couple of the gun shops. And then there's a handful of guys that have asked to take them to a couple of their charter club shoots. So just keep an eye out. We'll take as many signatures as we can get.
Good deal.
So I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot,
brother.
man. Yep.
Yeah.